All right, everybody. So welcome. Rubin here. I'm very excited to be with you today and for you to join in on our conversation. So I have one of my students here, one who's very near and dear to me, Will. So he's going to be sharing his experience with you. And I'm very excited for you to join in on this because he's going to be sharing his story and he's a very inspiring individual. You're going to hear, a true underdog story. So someone who's had the odds stacked against him, but he's come out on top. He's winning at the game of life. And my hope for you today is for you to see yourself in Will. Okay. So he's going to be sharing very vulnerably, very honestly. I want you to see yourself where he was at with anxiety and where he is now. Because when you can see the difference there, okay, you're going to feel the validation, right? You're going to see that, yes, he was in a tough spot and he's in a completely different spot now. Okay, very important. And this completely different spot that he's in now, through his courage and determination, I want you to see what's possible for you too. Okay. So, Will, super grateful for you being here and for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Rubin.
Yeah, and I think everybody is going to be very appreciative um, of you doing this or having this conversation with us and sharing. So
Yeah.
let's maybe start off with if you could just share with everybody just basic introduction, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is William. I'm 28 years old. I live in Los Angeles, California. Right now, I'm a coach at it's at a small school, elementary school. We like coach kids to play games, do social emotional learning, and in the afternoon, I work at the hospital. So it's two completely different fields, but it's
Mm,
really, what's making ends meet for me right now.
yeah.
So it's full time. On the side, I like, working out. I like going for a hike, spending time with my nephews, my sister, my brother. Yeah, so that's what my life is like right now.
Yeah.
It's very social right now, thankfully.
Yeah. It sounds like grinding away with work and then also carving out the time for the family there and hobbies as well.
Yeah, it's a work-life balance.
Work-life balance. There you go. So yeah, let's get into if we could, talk about so you're from LA, and then
Yeah.
if you could share like what was it like growing up there, right? So if you think about family of origin, school system,
Mhm.
community as well, the community around there. What was it like growing up there? And if you could think back to the previous version of Will, the anxious Will, how did that whole system, that environment shape that Will into being, that anxious version?
Yeah. So I grew up in South LA. I'm not sure if you're aware, but that's actually the roughest area in Los Angeles is South LA, and
Mhm.
I grew up here for basically all my life. I still live here actually. It's gotten better, so that's why I'm not thinking about leaving anytime soon, and
Mhm.
the rent's not that expensive where I'm at, and but I did grow up here. I moved to where I'm at in 1998, and yeah, it was the experience growing up here was very difficult to say the least.
Mhm.
I grew up in a household of three siblings. My mom, she took care of us. She was a single mother. My dad, he left us when he was about 8 years old, so it was just my mother and my three siblings, and she
Mhm.
would come and go to work. She would leave us there all day and then come back and just try to support us with what she had and what she knew, and
Mhm.
oh, and occasionally I would go outside. We would have neighbors, kids. They would go outside too, and we played with them and stuff. And So on the week and also on the weekdays, I did go to school at my local elementary school, like right across the street. And so I went there, and it was interesting. It was I did have a lot of good moments there, with
Yeah.
some of the experiences I had there, but also it was a lot of bullying, a lot of kids that come from troubled homes, so
Hmm.
they would bring their trauma with them, and so it was a lot of picking, and I didn't feel safe there, so I think it probably got progressively worse when I went onto middle school, and
By progressively worse, do you mean the anxiety or like the bullying or like both?
uh, it's the bullying and the violence. So when I went out to middle school, a lot of the kids, they were already kind of like rebels, or they didn't want to listen to the rules, and so it was a lot of like fighting, and well, that's just how it was at the school that I was at. So I I didn't really talk about this to my mother when what happened at school, because when I would come back home, I think when I would talk about something, I it was looked down upon. I was often told to man up, or you
Mm,
know just get over it. And
yeah.
so I that's when it initially started. Was I began to stuff down all of these experiences that I had in school. With the bullying, I didn't talk about it, and also because when my dad was here, he had like this macho mentality. He would just he say to get over it, and also he was also very judgmental. I
Mm,
didn't At that time, I didn't feel like I could be myself. If I
yeah.
wanted to dress a certain way, or if I wanted to act a certain way, my dad, he would always have something to say. And so a lot of that came from him, and also because my family mental health is not often talked about. So
Mm,
it was very taboo. Also with my, with my extended family as well, they would often tell me the same thing, to get over it. And also, the culture within my school as well is
yeah.
mental health was not something that was talked about in our school district at that time. And so I think, with that environment that I was in, with the my school district, and coming home to my abusive father, and
Mm,
I think that's what really started the cycle of, you know, stuffing all of this down, all of
yeah.
these experiences down,
Yeah.
and just brush it off and try to continue on with my life, going on
Yeah.
high school, and yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing because a lot of people watching, they probably have this question is a lot of people go through bullying, or a lot of people go through this, and a lot of people go through that. And they don't understand that they're minimizing their experiences in here, right? And so what I'm hearing is like you were going through the things externally, the bullying in the school system externally, but then there was no way to process it at home. So there's like the combination of the two. And I think that's a really important thing to bring awareness to.
Yeah, like there was no support at home, and so for me, yeah, the symptoms began when I was as early as around 6, 7 years old. Actually,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I didn't speak up, because to me, speaking up was bad. In my mind, speaking up for myself was bad. And so I completely shut down
Mm,
self-expression from pretty much anyone, and because I didn't know anything about mental health. coping mechanisms or anything of that sort. And so I was taught, based on my perspective, that it's not good to speak up. And so that would really shape all of my experiences until adulthood,
Yeah.
because that I kept that belief that
Yeah. Right.
I can speak up.
Hmm.
And um it carried me through high school. Actually, I didn't speak up to my teachers. They would see that my behavior was kind of erratic.
Hmm.
When I was in classroom, I was always quiet. The only time I would speak was with people that I was comfortable with, the people that were actually not didn't hold the best interest in me, and so I would just gravitate towards those people, those
Mm.
students. Um, Abuse me verbally and physically, and I've always wondered why it was that I gravitated towards these people. I
Yeah.
didn't think about it, but I know it was happening, and I thought there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And the minute and people that were more like, I guess you would say, more positive, I didn't understand that, because all I knew was just people calling me names and just saying all these mean things and just talking about inappropriate things.
Yeah. What do you think the gravitation was? Because um you see the positive kids, and then you see the kids, you could call them troubled or whatever, and they don't have your best interest at heart, but there's some sort of pull there, right? What do you think that that was within you that was pulling you towards them?
I I think because it was what I was comfortable with seeing at that time in my household, and just like in my environment in general. I just got used to it, and it's all I knew at that time. And
Yeah.
there was some sort of comfort in that, because as soon as surrounded myself with people that were unfamiliar to me,
Yes.
to me that was already uncomfortable. And so I started, being like the troublemaker or the bully
Hmm.
myself. And yeah, so that I would just gravitate towards that. And yeah, it's what follows me to high school, even going on to college, to adulthood, actually. So it's
Yeah.
a long journey. It's been a long, long journey.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's in the program we call it, it's like the law of attraction. It's not like the hey, I'm gonna manifest $10,000 kind of manifestation. It's more like this childhood programming, right? It sets in when you're very young, and then it pulls you to certain types of people or certain groups of people, right? So it's kind of like this thing that you experienced when you were young. You didn't know it at the time, but you were gravitating towards it because it was familiar. Is that?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting because when I was in high school, I already knew that I wanted better for myself,
Mhm.
and I still had all these things stuck down there. And so
Mm, mm.
I, I even though I still gravitated towards people that were no good for me, I I remember walking around and seeing what group I fit into most that weren't so damaging towards me.
Yeah.
And I still remember even then, when I was experimenting with different groups,
Hmm.
I still wasn't myself. I was still shut down. I couldn't really like talk to them, and um and when I did it, it often came from a place of, just kind of putting a facade, like a font, kind
Mm.
of like taking my personality in
Yeah.
order to get them to like me, or get along with them or something, or make friends, because it's something that I craved for so long, and because I knew I wanted better at that time. I knew I wanted better for myself at that time. I was trying to talk to people from this fake personality, but I felt so tense down here because I was pushing everything
Yes.
that was affecting me in early childhood. I was pushing it down. I didn't talk about it. Nothing ever happened, and I never talked about it because it's what I knew. It's not good to talk. It's not. I shouldn't be talking about it. I should get over it,
Yeah.
or I should move on. The past is the past. As my family said it, the past is the
Yeah.
past.
The
You're
past is
thinking
the
about it.
past, of course. Yeah.
Move on. What
Classic, classic line.
and that phrase is actually what made things worse for me, actually, because then I
Yeah.
thought something was wrong with me, or I'm gonna think something's really wrong with me. I'm not even
Yeah.
here, or yeah.
This is, I really like this, Will, what you're touching on here. So okay, so there's an attraction to say groups of people who they're not healthy for you, right?
Mhm.
But there's something inside you that's still pulling towards, say, the more positive kids, right? But then when you move over here, there's this kind of conflict. And I think a lot of people talk about this too, where it's like, I want to go, I want to move over to this more positive direction, but there's something inside me that won't let me show up as my true self over here, kind of a thing, right? And you tell me if this feels right, but it sounds like you were saying because you were told to this thing that's preventing you from being your true self, which is the past things you went through, you were essentially given the message to just, hey, the past is the past, shove it away, move on over here, and just kind of keep moving forward. Does that sound accurate to say?
Yeah, it's accurate, and so the advice that my family often gave me, it was very old school advice. It was not, they didn't know anything about mental health, and so they really tried their best to,
Yeah.
it didn't come from a bad intention.
Mhm.
Obviously, my mom, she still wanted the best for myself, and
Yeah.
she always said, work hard, go to school. One day you will have like an office job, or something that you want to do. And so I wanted that for myself. I told her, yeah, one day. And I actually, because she was the person that actually felt safer amongst
Yeah.
everyone else that I knew, I started opening up to her and telling her what was wrong, the best in my ability, letting you know her letting her know what was going on with me, and which was not a good idea, because with what she knew, long term, it was actually ended up being more damaging towards me,
Mm,
uh, because of what she told me. And um, but I couldn't help myself, because she was my mother, and
of course.
she's
Yeah.
the one that I trusted the most. And so I would often try to take her advice and trust her, and so
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
he was always concerned for me, and I think, it was in high school when she that's when it's like, okay, let's try to do something about this. I remember she got me my therapist in high school, and I remember we would go to downtown LA and to
Mm.
try to external things to try to like fix me. Uh, and obviously that didn't, at that time, because of what was going on, was already kind of severe and stuff. None of that was helping. And also the therapist that I seeked at that time, they were more on like positive self-talk. It was not, it was, it was very, it was very weird because, when I went to go seek help for this,
Yeah.
I just felt like there was no answer for it anywhere.
Yeah.
I would think that my mom would have the answer.
Hmm.
Just people that are older than me, I would think that they have the answer. And so, but I never got anything that would help me. And nobody ever taught me how to let go or
Mm.
feel into the sensations. And yeah, I felt trapped for a long time.
Yeah. What did that um and not to take away from, and mom obviously loved, your heart was in the right place. You truly wanted to help. And I'm sure the therapist was well intentioned as well, but say people trying to help who just don't understand maybe the problem. What what was the impact of that on you?
I think, well, even though they were trying to help, the things that they said were they were actually it brought up it was actually damaging, everything that they were saying, which and that's where I thought like something was really wrong with me, because I thought that I was like I thought it was just like stress, or at that time a stress that it would eventually go away. And but it didn't. And I took their advice, and because they're the people that I trusted. and
Yeah.
and so I thought it would take, I thought that it would solve the problem, but obviously it didn't.
Yeah, it sounds like it leaning on, say, the wrong help brought up more shame and more feelings that there's
Yeah,
something wrong with you as a person, kind of a thing.
which it put me into the cycle. It's what initiated the cycle even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these external things that people were telling me, it was feeding into the cycle that, oh, something's wrong with me. And so I started to have that belief that something is wrong with me.
Wrong with you. Yeah. Yeah.
All these different beliefs that something's wrong with me. And so when I would try to go live life and connect with people, it even propagated the anxiety even worse, because then I started having these experiences that didn't make sense to me.
Mm.
And I would think, why is it that other people can be so normal, and I was feeling this inside and have panic attacks. And
Yeah.
so all of this self-talk is what put me even further down, this cycle of anxiety. And eventually it couldn't get any worse when I got when I got to college. That's when it was at its worst. It couldn't get any worse. And then I turned to alcohol, weed, meth, whatever.
Yeah.
Alcohol, go have sex, just to get that endorphin rush so I can feel better for that moment. And
To escape.
yeah, those self-destructive behaviors. And because it was the only time I felt normal. And when I was when I was sober up, my pain body was just so activated. It was so strong that I could no longer pull myself out of bed. And when I tried to, it only backfired. It only backfired because every task felt so daunting. Every little thing. E-
Mm.
Even just a little small question to somebody, it was so daunting. Anything. And I thought that I was doomed.
Right. I think this is a good, like, maybe let's run with this. So, like, if you could just keep sharing, like, your experience, like, what was anxiety like for you? Like, what did you experience? Like, you're touching on everything seems so daunting. a question was overwhelming, to ask somebody what were these different like thoughts and feelings flowing through? Like what was anxiety like for you?
Yeah, so I, you really have to experience it to know. But I had a million different symptoms that were going on through my body that I was no longer in touch with myself, or I could no longer interact with anybody, or I just could no longer interact with the outside world in a way that I wanted to.
Hmm.
And so I just like kind of like just saw myself doing things, but it didn't come from a place where I felt that I had control. It came from a place where every little task that I was doing was initiated through fear. Everything that I was doing was fear based. Getting out of bed was fear based. Even though I thought I was doing something good for myself, it was all fear based. If I would go for a jog outside, that was fear. It didn't came from a place of inspiration. It came from a place of wanting to escape from myself.
Okay.
So even if I took that,
Would you call that like a distraction? Like you had to just,
yeah.
yeah.
So I would come back and just feel worse, and I was just it was
Okay. Yeah.
ongoing cycle of like mental torture, and so yeah, it just felt like I had this that I felt like I had 1,000 pounds on me,
Hmm.
just trying to go about my day, and there's 1,000 pounds of something on me, just pushing me down, and I'm trying to do things, and I don't realize that I'm resisting everything that in myself that is trying to express itself, because I'm pushing every little thing,
Yeah.
um, being hard on myself,
Hmm.
and so and it was very difficult. I never thought that there would be a way out of that, especially given the state that I was in, and I was desperate. That's why I drank alcohol pretty much all day actually, and
Yeah.
turned to meth, sex, you name it, porn, er, eating, just binge eating,
Yeah.
cake, pizzas, and I gained a lot of weight. I think I gained like 40 pounds or so,
Hmm.
and I 40 pounds than I do now, and yeah, it was just a constant, ongoing cycle every day. There was no moment where I felt like I was at peace. Nothing. It was just second by every little second felt like mental torture. And I think like the only moments where I felt, somewhat okay was when I would go to the store with my mom, because she was my only safety. I would just hang on to her, and even just going out with her, I still felt a lot, and I was agitated, and I would just tell her, I'm ready to go back. I don't want to be here.
Hmm.
Oh, and I would give her attitude, and because of all the things that were surfacing up when I was
Hmm.
putting myself there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, even just that. So, um,
Could
yeah,
you
so
could you maybe touch on that, Will? Because like you're putting yourself out there, and so it's kind of like you're putting yourself out there, and then I also hear there's like the escape and the distractions, right? So what was it about those approaches that didn't move the needle with your anxiety? Like what were the limitations, or I heard you say like it made it worse kind of a thing. So like what do you think that was about?
yeah, so the reason why I wasn't moving forward is because all of the distractions that I was doing was only keeping it alive. All of the the parts of myself that was doing things to get away was only keeping what was
Mm,
going on inside me. It was keeping it alive.
yeah.
And so, and
Well,
that's what I was doing all day, was
yeah.
distracting myself, because I thought that distracting myself I would feel better, or cope, to my anxiety. And what was very ironic was that I actually had this therapist that she would tell me that I was doing a good job by doing this stuff,
Yeah.
which made it even worse for me because
And that's a very common thing, right? It's a very prescribed thing out there is to go distract yourself.
yeah, these short, like these little coping crutches, as they would call it, but you're not even coping, you're just making yourself worse.
Yeah.
And so I would tell her that I'm playing games so I can feel better. Or she's like, yeah, continue doing that, continue, going for a walk, continue going for a run. You're doing a good job, with
So
and
continue to not look at the root of the issue kind of a thing.
yeah, she was not even about going into the room. She was more about, get up, open the window, let the sunlight in,
Yeah.
about it. And she did not know anything about. I think it was at that moment I realized that she was just a joke. And yeah, and which made it even worse, obviously, as you know. And
Mm,
all these therapists that I had. And so then I met you, and I started looking up on YouTube. I saw people were going through the same thing, and I realized that uh, you have to get to the root of it, even though, because we don't want to look at it. A lot of people that are anxiety, they don't want to look at it. They are distracting themselves, doing things to get away. And I mean, at least it was for me. And
yeah.
there's no awareness right there for you to say that, let me look at what's inside, because you don't want to look at what's inside because it's so painful.
So painful.
And I was like that for like 15 years or so. And I didn't want to look inside because I was full of resistance. It's all I knew is resist it, resist it, resist it, resist it. My brain was already programmed to resist it. So even undoing that resistance of what was going inside of me was already difficult within itself.
That's almost like the more important thing to work with first is distractions, escapes, all of those layers of resistance is sometimes, you know, the most important place to start sometimes.
Yeah, that was the main thing that was driving it, was the resistance,
Mm.
not acknowledging, not having no sense of self-awareness. And so it was very tough for me to find a solution. It was almost like I was, looking for a treasure in the uncharted islands of Fiji or something, because
Yeah.
that's what it felt like. And
And so Will, what were the different approaches that you tried essentially? Like walk us through some of these different approaches that you were trying that were more so distractions or escapes as opposed to dealing with the root.
yeah, so the approach that I would usually do, before I actually really got into the inner work, it was mostly this distraction based, just just things that, it was mostly, like going for a walk, or because it's at that time, it's what I thought I needed to do, was, like go for a walk, or I don't know, like play some video games, or just go with my mother to the supermarket and just help her with the groceries or go, like when my aunt would invite us to the beach, we would just go with her. And at that time, it's what I thought would help me get better
Mm,
and but also like at the same time in my mind, I was using it as an escape mechanism to get away. And when they didn't help me or make me feel any better, I remember just kind of like beating myself up and
mm,
damn, it didn't help, or I'm still feeling the same, or
yeah.
well, it was I did those approaches for pretty much most of my life actually, because is what therapists taught me was, just
How,
positive affirmations on your notebook.
yeah.
Well, tell yourself some positive affirmations. Let's talk about it. Go for a walk. It was the things that the therapists were talking about. Um,
How long were you in therapy for? Like, how long did you do the therapy for?
it started. Well, I had my first therapist when I was 13, but that wasn't consistent.
Mm,
Started being consistent in 2017, 2016.
okay.
It was, yeah.
And what do you think it was about the actual talk therapy that wasn't moving the needle? So good. There's obviously the positive affirmations, go escape on a walk. There's nothing wrong with walking, right? It's just, but when it's used as an escape
Yeah.
to the extreme, right? Uh, so the distractions, the positive affirmations, and then what was it in particular within the therapy? Like, what was your
Mhm.
experience there that wasn't moving the needle? So what were your experiences with the different therapists?
Yeah, so like for me, it was it was like a once a week type of thing. So it was not consistent, and so like the sessions it would be like just 1 hour. And
And you kind of
so
be talking
the
about,
difficult part for me was
oh, sorry, I was gonna say, within those sessions, you'd be talking about the anxiety kind of a thing, or like what was,
yes, the difficult part for me was when I try to verbalize it, it didn't come from a place of being authentic. I that part of me was blocked because of the anxiety. It was mostly
right?
from a place of like desperation and telling them that I wasn't really talking about it. I think I was just kind of like desperate, and so they would just kind of just tell me things that so they didn't really understand what was going on with me.
Right.
I Because of what I was telling them, there was a lot of misunderstandings and uh they had a sense of of what they thought I was going through, but they didn't really know because I could never verbalize what was going on
Like
with
you
me.
couldn't go down to this place here.
Yeah, I couldn't I because I had no sense of awareness, I couldn't verbalize it
Mm,
or let them know what was going on.
yeah.
And but they knew there was something wrong with me based on like my body language, and they would be worried, and sometimes I would even scare them.
Mm,
Mm. And so I
and
think that was the issue was that I couldn't verbal when I had those one-on-one sessions, they couldn't help me because they didn't know what was going on because I couldn't verbalize it.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it kind of ended up in this conversation around the anxiety, but not actually going down to the root. And then you started doing the inner work,
Mhm.
right? So then you started doing the inner work. And then when you started going towards the inner work and towards the roots, um, well, let's maybe ask it this way. What was the place where you were at before, say, you and I started working together? Say if you call it like a, like a rock bottom or a place where you realize this other approach isn't working. Distractions, escapes, talking about it, it's just not working. What was that place you were at where you needed to change your approach?
Yeah, so I started joining like depression groups, things groups that where people they were going through similar things, and so I would just often read those, and I remember you messaged me, and that's when a lot of the things that you said really resonated uh,
Mm,
with what I was going through. I'm like, wow, he understands. He's talking about all these symptoms that you go through, things that like when your mind blanks, when you're in a conversation, your mind blanks out, or when you can't really hear words when people are talking because of what you're
that's
feeling
a good one.
inside.
Yeah.
So it was a moment like that when I realized there was hope because I saw that wow, there's people that are. I'm not the only one. There's actually people that are going through the same thing, and this guy's he's trying to help, and so you started talking to me about the parts work, about how to get to the root of it, and so none of that made sense to me.
Mm,
It was very different than from what I learned in therapy. So when I started doing this inner work, and
mm,
I f- it was a lot different because I stopped doing the things that I was doing in therapy, and I immediately shifted. I had like a paradigm shift
nice.
where
Yeah.
I started being in contact with myself instead of
Oh,
uh, seeking external.
oh, can you just like elaborate on that? So you switched from trying to get it externally, the solution, to being in contact with yourself. So like what does that mean for say for the people watching? Like if you could touch on that a bit more.
Yeah, so the difference is that instead of my thoughts being out there, I started being in touch with my own thoughts and my own sensations, and instead of my thoughts trying to look for the answer out there. And
Yeah.
so with the parts work and getting with the inner work, that's what it's all about, is reconnecting with yourself, with um, all of your sensations, your anxiety sensations, and kind of
Letting
just
them.
letting them be there. And
Yeah.
that's really what the inner work is just letting, just accepting everything, everything within yourself, even if it's so painful.
It's
And that's the challenging part, is accepting it because of the resistance.
yeah.
Uh, for
Yeah.
me, I was resisting it. I wanted to get away, the distractions, and
It's almost like what I hear, it's like you were able to move through all the resistance and then finally come to the place where it's almost like you approved of yourself for the first time down here.
yeah,
The
that's
thoughts, even the feelings, the sensations, it's like you finally acknowledged them, accepted them, and gave yourself that young will inside you some compassion and some approval and
yeah,
some
and
empathy. Yeah.
that was very new to me.
Mm,
I Giving myself that compassion, it was something that was completely foreign to me. And so when I gave myself that compassion, just validating everything that I'm going through inside, all the thoughts, and letting them be there, and sitting with it, it felt like a mystical experience. to say the least. It felt magical. It's almost as if I don't know how I would describe it, but it hasn't like when you start to let go is when you just accept everything, and it just felt like a bunch of things wanting to like I was holding on to it.
Yeah.
This is it. And as soon as I let it be there and take over and accept everything,
Yeah.
everything's like going like this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like electricity. Like, wow, he's finally acknowledging us. Like,
He's finally acknowledging us. He's finally acknowledging us. Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
it was
that's
a moment. It's like I discovered something. In
yeah.
like, I found the answer.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
I found the answer. I no longer have to do this. I no longer have to do that. I knew I had it within myself at that moment was when I finally just let it all run through, let everything, all the thoughts just be there and sitting with it and just letting them, just accepting them. And
Yeah. Right.
because for most of my life, I try to take control by stuffing it down there and through willpower.
Mm.
Now I'm just like accepting it, and it might sound it might sound kind of simple, but it's also very difficult
Yeah.
because it's almost like it's almost as if like started I began to learn how to walk or
Yeah.
learn a new language or and so I began to live my life as normally as possible.
Yes.
And that was the hard part because the minute I put myself out there are so many things I want to take you back home and say, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what anxiety does. It tries to come up with every little thing, anything it can to bring you right back into your comfort zone, right back into that pit that you were in for so long.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part is
Yeah. So
the
what
voice.
were
Yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry. I think I cut you off there.
Yeah, that's the tricky part is all the voices. There are a million voices in your head, and they're coming up with so many ways just to put you right back into your comfort zone.
To put you back, right? So what were some of the things? So like when, those things were finally starting to complete, those things from your past,
Mhm.
right? And in the program we call that law of completion where you finally, it's like you said, it's very simple, but it can be very difficult and complex because of the resistance, right? But when you go down there and you feel what you need to feel and things complete, you give them your full attention, you give it your compassion, you give it your care there, things complete, right? And then all of a sudden you got room in here, you got mental space, you got more energy to move and experience, like you said, like a more normal life. So like, what were those things like when things were starting to complete over here? What were you able to get into the more normal things when you knew that was your sign, like things are working here because I could take action in different ways.
Yeah, so the first thing for me was going into the store like that. The only difference is that this time I was completely accepting everything that was going on within myself, and going to the store like that, rather than resisting and trying to uh, go to the store with willpower and just stuffing everything down there. The difference is that this time I just accepted everything, even if it led to a panic attack, which it did a lot in the beginning. So many panic attacks, and
Yeah.
that's the tough part. Is you gotta have a lot of courage You, for me speaking, I had to have a lot of courage. Um, and every time I had a panic attack trigger, I had a lot of panic attacks, and I would accept it,
Hmm.
both within me, and move on with my life as best way as I can, and see what else I can do in that day where I can just live my life as normally as possible. You know, do some dishes or go water the plants, and just try to accept everything within me when I'm doing as I'm doing every little task that I can do for the day.
Hmm.
And so I remember setting like little goals for myself. Okay, next time try to
Yeah.
go to the supermarket. And this yesterday when you went to the store, this time see if you can, I don't know, maybe go to the supermarket and walk in like that. And then when I would do that, I just felt like all eyes were on me.
Yeah.
And all of the sensations, the panic, started creeping in. And so it was just trigger after trigger after trigger after trigger after trigger. That's how it is at first. Well, for me, it was this
Hmm.
trigger, trigger, and it was super painful. It was
Yeah.
very painful, and but I was holding on to that glimmer of hope that that belief that this process is going to work. That it's just
Hmm.
time. That I just gotta feel into it and accept it, and keep going. Try to live life as normally as I can. Going back to living life.
So this is beautiful. So like what's there's like I think there's a very subtle thing that people need to understand. It's like you touched on it there. It's like acceptance and praising yourself for the little things. And then there was the other side where it was willpower and maybe trying to do the big things, would it be? Is that what I'm hearing? There's like there's a difference there.
Yeah. And that's what can hurt people is you got to be aware of the parts that try to do things through willpower. You know,
Okay.
when you try to do things through willpower, that's when you're escaping. That's when you're abandoning yourself. The
I
wounds.
love this. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Keep going, Will.
So that's when, like for me, it took a long time for me to realize that because
Mm.
try to do things through willpower, and sometimes it can still, it's still a process. It's a year and a half later, and it's I'm gonna be honest with you, but it's sometimes it's still part of me that wants to resist things when I get triggered. It's a very long process,
Hmm.
and, and at first, you want to do things through willpower because you just want to live life.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. There's so much pain in there that needs healing, that just wants to not do things because of all of the stuff that you stuffed down within you and you've been resisting for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you just like, why am I getting triggered over this thing? Why am I getting triggered over this little thing? And it's so easy to resist it and go back into self sabotage and thinking that there's no hope.
Yeah, right. Um, and it's like I think it's important for people to know when they're beating up on themselves and saying, "Why am I getting triggered?" and kind of beating up on themselves. That is the resistance. That's a part of the resistance.
Yeah. And it's those thoughts that you really have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Those thoughts that try to create a story to be like, why am I like this? Why and just being apathetic,
Yeah.
and those thoughts can have a lot of energy behind them, which can make it even which is even more challenging. So to be really aware and like me personally, I to this day I still sit down with myself a lot, and I s- accept everything that's going on. I I accept it. I sit down with myself a lot, and it can still be challenging because you might still get triggered and still go out into the world feeling this type of way. And they, so easy to go into self sabotage. It's so easy to feel like you want to escape it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when times like that, it's really important to really be so gentle with yourself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Realize that it's going to take a long time.
Mm.
That this is not even a year thing. This is for some people it might be different. For me personally, it's been a very long process, but I can honestly say that I'm living my life normally now. I
Yeah.
have two jobs. I have friends now. I can connect with my family and just strangers in the streets, talk to people.
Yeah. So slow and steady wins the race, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's just little wins. If you acknowledge those little wins, that right there, you already have evidence to know
Mm.
that this is working.
Can you give some examples of that? So you gave one example. What are like these other wins that you started to experience that you would start to celebrate? Say it could be multiple areas of your life, right? There's obviously your own inner experience, but then there's other areas like relationships, your health, career, all of these different things. What were like the little things that you started celebrating, the little changes that you started to feel were compounding and then moving you towards, that more positive future?
Yeah. So it's important to take note of your little wins because they do start compounding over time.
Yeah.
And you realize that those little wins is is what's building your new transformation as a person and your
Mm.
new character, your new personality. And at first I couldn't see that until I started seeing over time. I really started to see it within 2 months. I really started to see my personality change, my um I could finally smile. I couldn't smile for most of my
What
life,
what's that like? Because
actually.
the outside world, they'd be like, yeah, whatever. But for us, that's that ability to be able to smile, like, what was that like?
I just felt like I discovered. I just felt like
Yeah.
I met a new person.
Yeah.
Like I was meeting myself for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was meeting. It's so weird to say. And like you're finally meeting you're seeing your personality emerge finally for the first time in 28 years.
Whoa.
29 not yet. I'm 29 now, but
Yeah. Goodness, yeah.
I really started to embrace my smile. I'm like, wow, I could smile. Like my my face was always serious. I couldn't for the life of me smile because of the sensations that I had here, which were preventing me to smile. I was always embarrassed, looking away. Oh, I don't want to see me. It's so embarrassing, because I couldn't smile. And just like little wins like that,
Hmm.
it really builds some momentum, and you start to get excited. You begin to get excited, like, wow, there's so much more that's coming,
Yeah.
so much more. I just gotta stay with this process and realize that over time, these you're gonna feel better. the more you put yourself out there and feel into the trigger and feel and just accept it, accept the trigger, accept it. Even if you don't like it, it's the only way out of it is through it.
Yes. Okay. What you said right there just encapsulated so perfectly. Is the only way through is through it.
It's right through it, and right through it is painful. It's
Ooh, yeah.
and it requires a lot of courage, a lot of
Mhm.
courage. And yeah, but as soon as you start doing this inner work and really just trust the process, and if you start noticing even that little win at first, that little win, and acknowledge it and see that there's evidence that you have it in you,
Yeah.
you're gonna see that there's hope that this is just a beginning of a better life.
Hmm. Just the beginning. That's a beautiful thing. So like where do you say, you've touched on this true personality emerging, right? So now it's like your true self, your higher self is emerging, your real personality, and you're taking up more space in the world, right? And then when you say for that, you can see that brighter future, it's possible, right? So where do you see yourself headed now?
Well, right now I'm very glad to say that I am working two jobs right now, and so it's still it's still a process of like self-discovery. What is it that you want now that you have a lot more space, that you could finally function and feel normal, as they would say.
Yeah, yeah. I think a
Like,
lot of people, everybody that's watching knows that saying. I just want to feel normal. I just want to
yeah,
be the normal folks, right?
yeah. So it's the whole process of the self discovery, a lot of confusion, a lot of it's still it's still a whole adventure out there. It's a lot of challenges. It's exciting. It's difficult but exciting, and um, you really grow as a person through those challenges. And
Mm,
so yeah, I'm working two jobs. I'm the coach right now at elementary school, and I work for the food department at my local hospital. And so I saw that they doing like this program where they help with the workers with the education. So like right now I'm taking advantage of that and really just trying to make my life a little better. Make more money and try to travel a little more. Like I'm actually going to Mexico this Wednesday,
hmm.
and I'm excited because now I know how to deal with it. Before,
Yeah,
traveling would be so daunting, and now it's like I know it's I'm going there as a newer person,
yeah.
and there
When
might be I
when was
might still
that?
be triggered. And go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, finish, Will. I was gonna ask when was the last time you were back there?
I never been to Mexico.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Only been to Guatemala.
Okay.
So yeah, this is gonna be my first time, and yeah, I mean, it's like you start to create all these plans, all these outings with your friends, and yeah, it's like, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
I think that's a good thing to touch on, right? Because it's like what I heard was you're focused on, earning more money, career goals, right? You're traveling, so traveling, hobbies, having fun. So you got the career aspect, you have the fun aspect, and then you have the relationship aspect. You're saying you're proactive, you're connecting with friends. So I think this would be a good question to ask is like when anxiety's full on, it's hard to to understand goals or set goals or have these standards for yourself, right? So how has that changed to the now to the place where you're pushing forward on the career,
Hmm.
right? You're in the leadership position now. You are traveling, having fun, you're connecting and having the social life. Um, to know that anxiety is not controlling you anymore, how does that make you plan for the future essentially? Like how does that change?
Well, for me, I think for me it's a lot of I'm very curious to see
Curious.
where I can go
Yeah.
in this journey because of my ability to finally let go of the pain and just a lot of curiosity, just a lot of learning, just being curious about the world, learning about the world, seeing what's out there instead
Yeah.
of just being in here, just being in your head. Because when you're in your head, you don't even care about the outer world. You just want to feel better.
Yeah.
Mm. So now that I'm like finally experiencing the world, I'm coming from a place of curiosity.
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of like leveling up, kind of like a video game, kind of like leveling up that character, and
Yeah.
it really just depends on your mindset. I just like for me, I'm very curious. I realized that I actually like helping people. It is this whole social anxiety when I started connecting with people and coming from a place of compassion and understanding their problems. You
Yeah.
really start to feel good about these things, these small little things, and just seeing yourself through them and realizing that no one's perfect.
Mm.
Everybody going through their own issues, and when you have anxiety, you think you're the only one with problems, and everybody is perfect.
Yeah.
You also start to see that everybody is going through their own issues, that they're in their own little world, and so yeah, like for me, I like connecting with people, telling each other our stories, our struggles, and yeah, just putting yourself out there, and it's exciting. Uh,
Exciting. Yeah.
maybe you won't see it at first because of the anxiety, but once you start to see progress, for me, I started to get excited, and because there was things that I've always wanted, like relationships,
Hmm.
and now that I know I can get that, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's difficult because you're still getting triggered, but it's also exciting because you know you have it in you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Essentially, it sounds like, relationships too is one thing that you're moving towards too. Um, so I would say, what was anxiety something that blocked you from having relationships before?
Ye- Yeah, I couldn't even talk to my mom.
Okay.
That's how it was for me. I couldn't even talk to my mom, my siblings. I was just completely shut down from the world. I was drinking alcohol, watching porn, playing video games. I was completely shut down, and that's how it was. But there was always that part of me that craved relationships, and
Yeah.
now um, I'm like putting myself out there. I realize that I can, and realizing that I can talk to people now, and um, it's exciting to know that I can like meet different people and just learning is very exciting. And
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it's like curiosity about the world again. Um, Curiosity about the world, and it's like it sounds like that came because your humanness is back. It's like you recognize the humanness in yourself, And because of that, you can recognize it in others and be in a position to share and be of service to others. And with that, your curiosity's back about the world around you.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Yeah, that is powerful. And so, Will, looking back at Will 1.0, right? The version of you that was experiencing all that anxiety, because I heard you say your personality completely shifts. It does change, right? When you can really heal it at the root, your personality will completely shift. So what would you say, or who have you become? Like what's the transformation you've made, and who are you on the other side now as opposed to this 1.0 version?
Yeah, so so my reality has completely shifted. If I were if William 1.0 were to look at me, this is just 2 years ago. He would lose his shit language, but he would lose his shit.
Yeah.
Be like, who is this guy? I'm afraid of him. He's so confident.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that's not me. That's no way that's me. He would
Yeah.
completely lose his shit. And because I was like that for so long, and and now I can say that. What was your question? Wait, I didn't
Yeah.
catch your whole.
So that was the question is like, what would 1.0 say to you? Like, what would that old version, what would his reaction be to you? And then what would you want to say to him? Because he's,
No,
he's in the angst, he's doubting himself, he's thinking there's something wrong with him. Like, what would you want to say? What would the conversation be like?
I would tell him that he's in for a surprise.
Wow.
That he's in for a big time surprise because my reality has completely shifted into a 180,
Hmm.
80 degrees. And if he were next to me right now, I would not because of my new normal now, I would not really recognize him anymore.
Hmm.
No, I would have compassion towards him, and and also I wouldn't really recognize that personality anymore because and
Oh, well, it cut out there for a sec, but you were saying you wouldn't recognize that personality?
yeah, so I mean I would remember it. I would completely relate to what William 1.0 is going through if he was
Hmm.
beside me right now. And but I would it's two completely different personalities.
Yeah.
And the personality shift, he would just not believe it. He would not believe it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I would say that he's in for a surprise and to
Keep searching.
keep searching because I would always just give up and be apathetic. But there's a whole community of people that are going through the same thing.
Hmm.
And there's a whole community of coaches that know what they're going through, that they can guide you. They can't take you out themselves, but they can guide you. And and it's only that realization that you have it inside of you that you begin to realize that there's just a whole life outside of that personality of thinking that there's no hope.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Okay, and so Will, what would you want to say to somebody who's, they're thinking about enrolling in the program, about doing this work and actually getting to the roots of their anxiety, but they're thinking the same thoughts as Will 1.0. They're feeling what he feels and
mm,
they're doubting themselves and their abilities. So what would you want to
I
say to
would
them?
to really trust the process and really look into the program And I know it's really scary. I know, like for me, I didn't want to be in a group of a video call with a group of people because that was so daunting, and just really just look through the videos, look through the program, through the material, and really just trust it. And I know it's scary, but there is a life outside of anxiety. It's there. It's within all of us. It's given to all of us. Each and every person that's living and on this earth. It's we all, even though it might not seem like it, because of what you're feeling and what you're thinking. That if you really just trust trust the process and really, all it takes is just to send Ruben a message, or someone that understands what you're going through, because I was there for 15 years and that's all it takes. And it's scary, it's triggering. I understand that. I was like that, and it took a lot of courage for me to really just, where I can see that I can trust the process.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Trust. And it's like, I really like what you said. It's like, there's gonna be it's scary and a lot of fear is gonna come up, but every single person living has this gift to be on the other side. We all have this gift where we can be on the other side where we're not controlled by anxiety. We're not living in fear anymore. So
Yeah,
I really love what you said there.
yeah, it's within all of us, and I didn't think it was within me when I was living with so much anxiety. I
Hmm.
thought alien. I was just thought I was not part of this world. I just thought I was just something else, and
Yeah.
but it really is within all of us. It might seem impossible because all this, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, you feel like you can't connect with anybody, and yeah, I was like that and I'm very grateful to say that I was wrong this whole time. That it's the mind likes to be in an illusion.
Hmm.
Um, it likes to think that this is who you are, but it's really not.
Hmm. So who's the true will that came up that emerged out of all of this? Who is he?
Well, the will that emerged was the will that has full control. I had full control ever since I was born. I full control of my life ever since I was born. When you were a kid, you didn't. You were a kid. You were just a kid. You were just playing around. You were just being yourself. You were happy. It was always there. That kid aspect of myself, it was always there. And
Hmm.
when you're a kid, you feel like you have a lot of control because you're doing whatever you want. You're just living life. It's always been there, and I started reconnecting to that part of myself that has control. That is not in my head. It's not. I'm not my thoughts.
Yeah. And so, Will, it sounds like you're out of your head. I mean, that prison up there, it's like you're finally out of it and you're back in your heart, you're back in your body, and you're moving through life in a less fear, in a fearless way.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's just like reconnecting with yourself, your emotional experience, realizing that you have control, and just being in your body and not
Hmm.
being there, like your thoughts out there. Just really just bringing it all back in. Like that's really. the true nature of like or for me, like when I found out that that's really me, it's the
Mm,
part of me that realizes I have full control and just bringing myself back to my body and reconnecting with my, just validating my experiences, validating my sensations in my body, my thoughts, and just sitting with myself. That's when I realized that that was who I am. Just
mm.
the part of me that has the seed of control
Mm-hmm.
of my own life.
Yes. Okay. And so there you have it, guys. So the real Will, he's here. Here, he's here to claim his seat. He's experienced just this profound personality change and leading his life from this place. He's back in control. He's captain of the ship again. Okay. So I just want to say thank you, Will. Man, I have so much gratitude and appreciation for you just for you doing the call and just sharing your story. Such an empowering one. I think everybody listening into it and watching, they'd be just very inspired, very inspired. They're going to draw so much strength from it. And I think they're just going to really see what's possible for them. So,
Yeah,
yeah, man,
I'm glad to put it
appreciate it.
out there.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, go ahead. I was going to say my utmost appreciation to you, brother.
No, thank you, Ruben. I really thought that I really think my story is gonna help people, especially with my background, my experiences with anxiety, and just thinking that there was no hope. I really, just putting it out there and like and just saying it how it was for me, and just being authentic and realizing that it's not easy, and there's hope out there. There is. It's um all sometimes all it takes is just send you a message and just trusting the process.
Yeah, starting the journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So let's jump off there. I'm gonna put a link below the video if you want to book a call to talk about the program and the coaching. So if you really see yourself in, like we talked about Will version 1.0, and you want to make a similar transformation, then go ahead and book that call, and we'll see you soon, okay? And we'll sign off from today. We'll sign off for today. Will is going to give a goodbye, and then we'll talk to you guys soon, okay? All right.